that you could be doing that are far more useful than sitting here reading out of an ancient book of Babel, which has, for some strange reason, sold billions of copies. I don't know why. What is so good about the Bible? I don't know. Hello. Are you behaving yourselves, ladies? Most of the time, yeah. Oh gosh, look, you've got a whole lot of them now. How come some of them are wearing masks and some are not wearing masks, eh? Ladies and gentlemen, from today you must wear a mask in shops. And anybody who doesn't wear a mask in a shop is selfish and nasty and a spreader. We don't like those people, as from today. Yesterday they were fine, but today they're nasty, selfish spreaders.
Thou hast not brought me the small cattle of thy burnt offering.
Okay, we've got the Bible back here now. What's going on here? When did you start getting this idea into your head, and are you sure it is a good idea?
About 6 months ago, folks, I saw this man speaking the most vulgar language you can possibly hear.
You can possibly hear?
In the middle of the road.
What was I saying?
Having a great time to himself.
I was having a great time to myself using vulgar language, really? What language exactly was that? Can you give me some examples?
It's not fit for repetition.
Not fit for repetition? Give us a clue of what words that was said.
I didn't want to encourage you, sir. You're a dirty man.
I'm a dirty man? It's funny you should say, ladies and gentlemen, I've just been accused of being a dirty man by a random person over here. And I have to admit, I've been called all sorts of things in my time. But I haven't been called a dirty man for a long time. I have to admit, I was once called a dirty man. This girl, Sheila, when I was in university, she called me a dirty man, but she was quite happy about that. But you're clearly not happy about my being dirty. Is that right? Am I spiritually dirty, would you say?
Now you're getting closer to the point.
Now I'm getting close to the point. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been accused of being spiritually dirty by this man reading the Bible here today for reasons that so far we haven't been able to ascertain. What are you doing here and what are you trying to do?
Is this an interview?
This is an interview, yes. What are you doing here and what are you trying to do? If things go really well, if things go all your way this evening, what will be a result for you?
Harry, this will make it bolder. Good. He's encouraging you.
Exactly. This is good training for him. Training him with the devil. Know how to speak to the devil that I am.
You're one of the primary things that could go well for me if you were to go now.
If I was to go now, that was one of the primary. Yeah, but you see, that's ridiculous, really. Because you're out here with a mission, right? So that's just like, for me to disappear, that can't surely be, like, you haven't really achieved anything other than me going somewhere else, which I will do eventually.
I don't mind if you want to give out tracts and copies of John's Gospel. Would you like to do that?
Give out copies of John's Gospel? Yes. Oh, I see, is that what you're doing? You're really into John, are you into the old, you like John's Gospel particularly? Do you like that one? Is that your thing? John does it for you?
Can you tell us about yourself, please?
Can I tell you about myself? I'll tell you what, rather than go on about myself, right, because yes, of course I could do that, but I think, you know, I'd rather ask you to explain all the suffering and the illness in the world. Can you explain that, please? What kind of loving God would allow millions of children to have cancer? Sin? Oh, really? Oh, so the sin is the reason why someone's born with one leg. Is that right? Yeah? Sin is the reason why there's a tsunami. Really? Oh, right. So God creates this world and then makes it, you know, very tempting for you to do all sorts of things in it. And then when you don't do the right thing, then he goes and he sends a tsunami to kill loads of people and wars and all that stuff.
Would you like me to give the explanation that St. Augustine gave 1500 years ago?
Well, I mean, if you want to do that, I don't know why you don't just give your explanation. Why don't you just speak to me right now, right here, and tell me what came from your mind rather than someone that you don't even know existed?
When I came across this explanation by St. Augustine for why evil exists in the world, I was persuaded that it is the best reason.
Okay, then go on. What is it?
The best reason that I can give for why sin exists in this world, and I've heard Stephen Fry make the same point, that on Judgment Day he would like to draw up to God and say, how can you possibly allow insects that drill into children's eyes in Africa and explode out their retinas as they're growing up? How can you, as a good God, possibly allow this evil to happen? So the reason is very simple. God's glory is far greater than the worst evil on earth. And I told this to an ex-colleague a year ago, a very well-educated man, and I gave this example. In the Nuremberg trials in the 1940s, there were 25 Nazi war criminals who had been sentenced to death by hanging. And there was an American pastor, American minister, who was sent to evangelize to them. And of those 25, I believe about 14 or 11 were converted and became Christians, and they had been born again, and they believed that they had had all their sin forgiven. Now, that is a perfect example of God's goodness eclipsing the evil of man. And I believe that on Judgment Day, if you're not born again, you are going to hell, and you will be left with no excuse.
Oh, that's a charming. Isn't that nice? You're not such a nice person after all, are you? You've got involved with quite an obnoxious ideology. What a horrible, ridiculous, obnoxious ideology that these guys, these Nazis, just because they said that, you know, they were born again, and they said, oh, you know, let me be forgiven for all my sins. They're forgiven for all. How dare you say that?
They changed their life as well.
What do you mean they changed their life?
Isn't it possible to be forgiven?
What a load of... I mean, seriously, what nastiness. The implications of what you're saying is that even if a person is decent and kind and full of compassion, they're going to hell if they don't believe in your stupid ideology. I mean, seriously, your ideology is just absolutely crazy.
The best regiment.
I mean, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you something. Let me ask you this.
I'm a
Are you married?
officer cadet. So.
No, okay. If you were married and your wife came home one day pregnant and you knew you hadn't slept with her, and she told you that God was the Father, would you believe her?
Hey, he's hanging out more flyers than you people standing there.
Would you believe her? Come on. If you came home to your wife, you knew you hadn't slept with her for a long time, yet she was pregnant, and she told you God made her pregnant, would you believe her?
I think you're regressing now. Let's try to rephrase what you've said in a slightly more clean way.
Clean way? What's unclean about what I'm saying? What on earth is unclean about what I'm saying? This happens every day of the week, all over the country and all over the world. People get pregnant to other people in all sorts of funny situations. And I'm asking you a question. If your wife said that to you, would you believe her?
Well,
because I wouldn't believe my wife. I mean, she's quite a nice person. I'd be quite surprised, but I wouldn't believe her if she said that. I mean, but obviously you would. I don't know. You'd believe your wife, would you?
In the book of Isaiah, written 700 years before Christ came, it talks of a virgin conceiving.
What is it? Yeah, but you see, virgins can conceive, yeah? Once they've been...
Are there any virgins left in this country?
Are there any virgins left in this country? Yes, probably. Probably lots of young women are virgins. Sure. Yeah, sure. Lots of young women are virgins.
You sure of that?
Well, I mean, obviously I haven't checked every one of them. But there are virgins, and the thing is that when Isaiah was talking about virgins conceiving, he was speaking in a kind of poetic way, which was how they spoke in those days, right? There was a poetic way of saying that the person was conceiving on the first hit, first try, yeah? She was a virgin, and then she slept with someone, and then she got pregnant. So therefore, virgin gets pregnant. That's all it means. What are you talking about?
Even you can be a
doesn't mean that, the other thing, that's just the whole story. Don't be silly. It wasn't even written in English anyway. It doesn't say she was... And you don't even know what the original language was. You don't know what it was, the original language. You don't speak it. So you're not even reading, you're reading someone's interpretation of it all.
I know that in Hebrew.
Yeah, how much?
In Genesis, in Hebrew in the beginning, Bereshit, Elohim.
Yeah, but how well do you know the good grammar of the language?
Pretty poor.
Yeah, exactly.